people. Well, this is actually my second attempt at doing this video. I'm changing the way I'm going to do it because I basically just sat here for over 20 minutes and tried talking about this topic on a long scale, but really I was just babbling on about too much, and I'd have been sat here forever if I tried to go on from where I started with the topic until today. I'd be here all night. And I don't think you really want to watch for that long. Anyway, so yes, the topic of this video is anxiety. And given what's recently happened, as you might know, those of you who follow me, I'm in a hotel because there was a fire at my flat complex. And I've been okay for most of the time, but this past week my anxiety's come back, and it's been fairly bad, to be honest, the past week. So I think now is the time to do this. I say what I've done so far. I've done organisational problems, done a video on that. I've done a video on being a visual learner, and I've done a video on unrealistic expectations and delusions. So yeah, this is anxiety. Now, I've had anxiety pretty much my whole life before I even knew what the condition I had. I didn't know anything about autism. I didn't know anything about learning difficulties. I only knew I had cerebral palsy. But I had my first real signs of anxiety began obviously when I was younger at school. And I did start to worry a lot quickly about going to school, not long after I started, particularly because I had an issue with learning to add up. That was the first time I remember actually feeling anxious and having somewhat feeling of a paranoia of how the school day was going to go, how it was going to turn out. But as time went on in the early primary school years, I still had issues with paying attention, and I still had issues with paying attention, for long, and listening to what was being said, which caused teachers problems and frustrations. But I think over time the anxiety started to go away because I just started to feel settled, regardless if I had the problems, even though I did still have the issues I was having. But when my anxiety really kicked in was as a teenager, and because at the time, obviously when you went at 13 to you start puberty, teenage years, and that's hard enough for any teenager, without having any other problems. Now, I think I know that how I experience anxiety is paranoia, in a sense of paranoia, when you worry about things that might happen, but not necessarily things that will happen, but you worry about how things might turn out, which is often not always the way they do turn out. So, I have been in situations many times when, I've spent so long being a wreck about something upcoming, and then it actually turns out okay. And I think, what was all that worrying about? I didn't necessarily learn the lesson. I did get better at it in some ways, get more relaxed. I've been so relaxed this past year, despite things that happened with COVID and now, obviously, not being at home. But what's triggered me to do this video now is just I have experienced anxiety. Particularly this past week, because I've been at this hotel nearly a month, and it's a nice place, it's a comfortable place. We could be in far worse situations, don't get me wrong. But my worries, I worried an awful lot, and still do now. I worry about how things will turn out, depending on the situation I'm in. Like when I was at school, particularly when I was in the special school from the second year, when I was year 8, the middle year, Key Stage 3, to middle of year 10, which is when I left and returned to mainstream. I had so much time off, obviously through saying I had a stomach ache, through basically faking a stomach ache, because I was terrified of certain lessons and was having problems with, quite serious problems with certain teachers, because they were getting frustrated with me because, as I have mentioned before, I don't think they could really understand the support I need. And also and obviously I am still, to a degree, I still can be fairly obsessive at times about how I want things or how I think I need things. That leads to anxiety as well. Worrying about, what if I don't get this a certain way? What if I can't do something a certain way? What if I end up being with a person who will put pressure on me to do things a certain way? All that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's my biggest issue, which has been, since I can remember, feeling anxious, and that's probably still to today. Some other examples I can give. I remember, which is definitely a form of paranoia, what I now know, and what we now know as paranoia, is you worry about things that might happen. And I literally used to worry about things that might happen for no reason at one point, particularly during those teenage years at school. I used to have terrible worry. I used to have quite vivid worrying periods of something happening to my family, just something bad happening to my family. I'm worried that if anything happened, if I lost my family, because my mum was a single mum. She had me and my sister, and I was needing a lot of support from my family at the time, emotionally, particularly off my mum, because she was the one who was really trying to deal with everything, dealing with all the issues I was having, dealing with, just trying to, deal with life in general as well, So yeah, that was one worry I used to have, because I knew a few friends who had unfortunately lost a parent or lost a loved one, and that seemed to trigger something in me. And I did learn, when my anxiety levels went down, which is during my last year of school in year 11, when I was no longer at the special school and was feeling more relaxed and more settled, that did seem to go away for a while. And then when I started college, and then things ended up in a real mess again, because I went on a course that was just too high a level for me at the time. I had the qualifications to go on it, but I'd been so obsessive about getting 5 C's at GCSE, and going on to sixth form at school to do A-levels. And I was literally, at this point, refusing to even consider doing other things. I wanted to be doing the same things as most of the others were doing. And the thing is, what really gets me now is that that's not what a lot of people I actually knew and were close with did end up doing, but this was the effect of the Asperger's was having on me at the time. And so yeah, I very almost did get the grades, but I missed a 5th C with a D, so I'm a bit unfortunate, but I ended up being quite happy with the results. And I attended this national diploma in media course. And very quickly, that got too much. The work was at quite a high academic level, having to write 2 or 3, having to write up to 2 essays, 2 or even 3 some weeks, 3,000, 1,500 word essays, and the day was long, and eventually I ended up getting really ill and made myself quite physically sick, as well as ill with stress and anxiety. But yeah, that was sorted out, and the second year timetable was reduced, and basically I didn't have much anxiety, certainly not regarding college anyway. But those are the two examples I've talked about up to this point, having worries about things happening to people close to me, and having certain paranoia about how things might turn out. Those are the two examples. Those have been the two prime examples of my anxiety. And going back to kind of the organisational problems, that causes me anxiety as well. When I start to know that I've misinterpreted certain things, like keeping things tidy, or I've not done certain things right, and then realising it's going to have an effect on someone else as well as myself, because someone else is going to have to help me to put it right, and it's going to add to their issues, kind of thing. So yeah, a big part of what's led to my anxiety, what causes my kind of anxiety attacks, or sometimes they're not often now are they as intense as they used to be. So at one point I was having probably at least 1 to 2 serious anxiety attacks every day, but now I'm other than what's happened recently, I'm fairly chilled and calm. I've learned to find ways, around many things of doing, with certain day-to-day tasks, like trying to manage housework, keeping tidy, which I'm still not very good at. And the support workers do regularly point this out to me, that I just need to get a bit better at organisation. I feel I am getting better at that, but I've still got a bit of a distance to go there. But anyways, and when it comes now to being a visual learner, knowing I am a visual learner, when I started looking at visual video tutorials, an audio book, an audio, basically any kind of audio book or that I could listen to, that helped. That changed me, because I found this was the way I actually process things. And whilst there were only slight signs of this when I was a young teenager, but now I've got pretty much what I need to help me get through stuff and learn new things as well. And for example, I was looking at a tutorial the other night, just to find something to do. I was trying to figure out how to record yourself on camera and show a screen at the same time, and also record a screen, so that people who do capture videos for like games or reviews, that kind of thing. And I still didn't get it quite right, but I got a pretty good idea of what to do, so I can go back to that. So yeah, I was feeling quite frustrated after spent over an hour doing it, but I think I can come back to it now. But I probably won't be able to do any videos like that till I get home, because I've got more equipment and stuff at home that I can use, whilst I don't really have. All I've got really here is a MacBook and my phone. Alright, so yes, I think anxiety for me has been a serious issue, and also because I've been so bad at times that I've made things quite difficult for other people, particularly my mum and my family, and at times support workers. I can have what tends to happen is I'll get a thought in my head about something, whether it be something upcoming, or whether something triggers. I get a trigger by someone saying something, or if I hear or see something that makes me think of something, worries me, and I'll start to feel this I can start to feel this intense, just feel like myself tense up, and start to feel this frustration, and then depending on what it is that I'm actually worrying about, I can, depending on what it is I'm actually worried about and how big of the problem is, depends on how bad the anxiety attack gets. Now, the best example I can give for now and today is when something goes wrong. When something goes particularly wrong is when I tend to have these anxiety attacks. For example, if I need to be somewhere and can't find something, say if I've misplaced my wallet, my phone, or if I'm doing something like, if I've misplaced something like the TV remote, or in a case if I've got someone coming and I'm not ready, coming to visit me or to support me, and I've not got things quite ready, I can start to worry and start to I can start to feel these tense emotions, and my muscles kind of tense up. And in certain times, or a lot of the time now, what happens is, usually if I eventually find it, if I remember where I might have put it, or I suddenly remember, I'll probably put it there, or in case if it's my wallet, I might have probably just left it in a coat pocket or something, or left it in the drawer, and then I'm fine. But for that 10 to 20 minutes, I've been feeling really distressed and agitated. But as I say, that's getting better now. But I've had a few episodes like that the past few days. Just, I think, because what's been worrying me is just, about getting home and getting things back to normal. I suppose, I think what I know is worrying me about the steps I'll have to take, because I know I'll have to make certain changes and I'm going to have to reorganise some things so that, God forbid, anything like that should happen again. I really don't think it will, but should it, I have to know that I'm better prepared. Because this situation with the fire, it just isn't. I mean, you do all this fire training, and I've always taken any form of health and safety training I've done seriously, because you do always have to be prepared for, as unlikely as it may be, you have to be prepared for the worst, and you don't think it's going to happen, but now what's happened, because I've been through this, I now know that it can happen, and I'll have to reorganise things. I'll have to reorganise things when I get back. But the thing is, while I've been at the hotel, as comfortable as this is, and I've got a few things to do, it has felt a bit isolating, because we're seeing a lot of each other, myself and the other tenants, and I've mentioned this in another video, that we've seen more of each other here than we would if we were at home, because we can go out and sit down and go for meals together, and go and sit down and have a cigarette or a chat or a drink, that kind of thing. We don't normally do that, and when we're at home, we just tend to, most of the time, I just tend to keep to myself, and so do the others. But yeah, I'm still on the medication known as citalopram, which is what controls the anxiety. And it does a good job. I think since I started taking the citalopram, which I've now been on for about over 5 years now, that really did make a difference, being more relaxed. Because at one point I was getting I was in a really bad place regarding. I was working at the time, and things weren't going very well, and I was turning into a wreck. I literally probably had several mini sort of anxiety attacks. Probably one nearly every hour, because I was in such a bad state, just worrying about how things were and if things would improve. But But then when I started taking citalopram, I instantly noticed the difference. I could actually enjoy myself, because at one point my mum pointed out to me that, you can't seem to enjoy life, but now you've been on these pills. And not only did they make a difference to the anxiety, but I used to have these regular sort of involuntary shaky movements caused by either excitement or stress due to my autism. And the pills seemed to keep that under control as well, which was awesome. But as I say, yes, my confidence has really grown due to my now having my own place. I'm not there, unfortunately, at the moment, but I will be back soon, I hope. And and just having freedom and being able to do things in a way that suits me without being interfered with. Because I was, in your school days, you're expected to do things the way the teachers tell you, and or in certain places, whether it be work, you have to do things a certain way, and it can be very difficult for people like myself to be understood and supported, right? But yeah, and I remember having cognitive behavioural therapy when I was 17. Because at one point I was getting so distressed, I would have these episodes where I would shout for a long time, like sort of actually scream when I get so paranoid. This goes back to the college days, and I'd have these sessions with, for about a couple of months, I'd have these sessions with a cognitive behavioural therapist, which helped, but then it still didn't help me to stop. But then I had this appointment with my GP where my GP gave me a right telling off because of because I was disturbing other people, and I wasn't really aware of what I was doing at the time, but I know that neighbours would complain about the fuss I was making, because I was actually having these sort of mini rages. Not violent rages, but these really intense anxiety attacks where I continuously shout. My doctor eventually gave me a right telling off for it, and I was really distressed. Well, I was really upset with him at the time. I was 17 and just come out this really difficult year with college. But now I realise I've certainly realised now that had to be done. He had to give me that telling off, because it might have been the only way. It probably was. And but as I say now, I feel more, I'm a lot freer, and I can do things how I see fit to do them, and I'm very confident now with the way that I learn, and it has changed me and given me more confidence in the way I in ways I never thought would happen. Like, I can do all kinds of things, like make these videos. I can perform some day-to-day tasks better. I can socialise. I'm okay with socialising. I've not as such had an issue with social anxiety. We'll just quickly talk about that. For a few years, I'd never had social anxiety. I certainly had social problems as a kid, problems socialising, but not social anxiety. But when I started having these issues, being on the media course at college, I started to have flashbacks when I'd get stressed of this particular not nice thing that happened to me when I was a few years before on a holiday at Butlins. I got targeted by some not nice people who, unfortunately, spanked me. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I just learnt my lesson because I was on my own. I was walking around on my own, and I made it look like a bit of an easy target, and I got spanked. Which, the thing is that I was very rarely ever actually bullied, physically bullied, or even psychologically bullied. But for that year, after I got over that practically. It didn't really even bother me. I just learned a lesson not to go around on my own at night at the time. I was 15 at the time. And just wanted to be doing my own thing, but I was targeted by those people and I just had that little incident. But I thought nothing of it at the time, and this was like a year and a half later. But I started to have these flashbacks about this when I was going through this hard time with college. The stress caused me to suddenly have these flashbacks, and I didn't know why I was having them at this time. I was asking myself, why am I struggling with this now, when it's been, when I've achieved a lot, I've done things, I've done my GCSEs, I'm now on this course, and why am I remembering this? Why is it making me stressed? And unfortunately, these flashbacks went on for a couple of years. I did start to worry about going into places, like going out and about and just encountering people. And so, yeah, that's a bit of the paranoia that I've heard about. People worry about what people might think of you, or you worry people aren't going to be nice to you. And I've heard, very accurate examples of that from other people. But yeah, that was the only time it happened to me. But but eventually I learned to stop that. That did stop. As soon as I finished the college course, that pretty much stopped, and my confidence level really started to grow then, because I started. The first thing I did, completely on my own to build up independence, was I decided to start travelling on the bus on my own to the city of Leicester, and then throughout the following year, I started using trains. I became confident using trains and buses and going to places, and and eventually I began to lose very much all my social anxiety, and I don't really suffer from it now. Only when I come across someone who isn't particularly nice, or if I see someone who might seem like they're going to be unpleasant. That's the only time I get a bit wary. But then again, everyone gets wary in those situations. So yeah, that's sort of social anxiety, and I think a lot of people I've known and spoke to have had issues with that. I'm just going to mention Holly Matthews here, the life coach that I joined the Facebook Lives in, and watch her YouTube content. We did she did a live broadcast this evening, and anxiety, and people were asking questions about her anxiety, because what she does on a Thursday, she does the free Q&A where we can ask her anything and she'll answer. And we ended up talking about various forms of anxieties people have had, and what level of sort of happiness they're feeling. She always asks you to rate yourself out of 10 about how you're feeling about yourself through the day, at the start of the lives, which is good. I remember, yes, I put that I was a 6. I think because hearing news I was going to go home next week, hopefully. I think there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, so that brought my mood up. And then, people were talking about, people were mentioning things like feeling a bit paranoid, or having social anxiety, or feeling stressed about the situation they're in, and it was a very useful live stream. And I've actually, I was glad I caught it, because I've missed all her live streams for the past few weeks due to what's been going on, and struggling with my sleep a bit. But so I caught it tonight, and it was good. Really helpful to sit in on one of Holly's live streams, and it was a good topic as well. Okay, so that is my story with anxiety. Now, I'm aware it's not been. I'm aware that it's not been very accurate, but I've given the best examples I feel I can in my situation, and I've taught about ways to cope, ways that I learned to overcome it. So I will say the best thing I can do, now that I'm confident with the way I learn, which is by visual methods, that can give me the confidence to make me want to try something new, rather than be persistently told or pushed into a situation. I have the confidence now to try new things because I now know how I learn. Okay, yeah, so this is my video regarding anxiety. I hope you found it useful to an extent. Okay, well, thanks for watching. You're all awesome. See you soon.